Elijah Warner sat in his office, staring at the latest customer service reports. Complaints had been piling up, especially about one location, his high-end boutique in Manhattan. Customers described rude staff, dismissive behavior, and an unwelcoming atmosphere. He clenched his jaw. He'd built this company from the ground up, starting with a single store that catered to luxury clientele but treated everyone with respect. Now, with 11 locations, had things really gone this bad? His district manager, Aaron, had assured him that everything was fine. Probably just a few picky customers, he had said with a shrug. But Elijah didn't believe that. He needed to see it for himself. That's why he was standing outside his own store a week later, dressed in worn-out jeans, an old hoodie, and a slightly scruffy beard. His usual tailored suits and polished shoes would make him stand out. He had never personally met the store's employees. Most hiring was done at the district level, so they wouldn't recognize him. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. The boutique was immaculate, sleek glass displays, soft lighting, and the faint scent of expensive leather. A few employees stood around chatting. None of them greeted him. His eyes drifted to the manager's desk. A tall, well-groomed man in his 40s, wearing an expensive watch, stood behind the counter. Elijah recognized him from company reports. Brandon, the store manager. Before Elijah could approach, the door chimed and an elderly couple walked in. Their clothes were worn but clean, their shoes slightly scuffed. The woman clutched her husband's arm as they gazed around in quiet awe. Brandon immediately noticed them. His expression turned sour. "Excuse me," he said, striding toward them. "I don't think this is the kind of store you're looking for." The couple hesitated. The man, clearly embarrassed, cleared his throat. We don't do window shopping here," Brandon cut in sharply. "This is a high-end boutique. Our products aren't for everyone." Elijah felt his stomach drop. The woman's face fell. "We just wanted to look at." "I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Brandon said, his voice cold. "We have real customers to attend to." The husband placed a protective arm around his wife's shoulders. "We're sorry to bother you," he murmured before guiding her back toward the door. Elijah's fists clenched. As the couple left, one of the employees, a young woman with dark curls, looked uncomfortable. She shifted on her feet but said nothing. Brandon turned back to his staff, shaking his head. "People need to know their place," he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. Elijah took a slow breath, trying to contain his anger. He wasn't ready to reveal himself just yet, not until he saw the full extent of what was happening in his store. Instead, he walked toward the nearest display, running his fingers over a sleek leather bag. A sales associate, a blonde woman in her 30s, finally approached him. "Can I help you?" she asked, but there was no warmth in her voice. Elijah glanced at her name tag, Vanessa. "Yeah," he said, keeping his tone casual, "just looking around." Vanessa gave him a quick once-over, then forced a tight smile. "Well, if you need anything," she didn't finish her sentence before turning away. Elijah knew exactly what was happening. They had dismissed him based on his appearance, just like they had done with the elderly couple. He turned his attention back to the young woman who had looked uncomfortable earlier. She was folding scarves at a nearby table. Her name tag read Jasmine. He walked over. "Hey, that couple that just left. Do things like that happen a lot here?" Jasmine hesitated, her fingers tightening around the fabric. She glanced toward the front, where Brandon was laughing with Vanessa. "I'm not really supposed to talk about that," she said softly. That told Elijah everything he needed to know. Before he could press further, Brandon's voice rang out. "Vanessa, keep an eye on that one," he said, nodding toward Elijah. "Looks like he's more likely to steal than to buy." Elijah met Brandon's gaze, his heart pounding. This wasn't just bad customer service. This was blatant discrimination, and he wasn't going to let it slide. Elijah didn't react to Brandon's remark, but inside, his frustration deepened. He had built this brand on the idea that luxury didn't have to mean exclusion. Yet here was one of his own managers deciding who was worthy of shopping in his store. Jasmine, still folding scarves, kept her head down, but Elijah noticed the tension in her shoulders. She had obviously seen this behavior before. He turned to her. "How long have you worked here?" She hesitated, then answered quietly. "Almost a year." Before he could ask more, Brandon's voice cut through the store again. "Vanessa, I don't want him hovering around. If he's not buying, he needs to move along." Elijah let out a slow breath. He had seen enough for today. He gave Jasmine a nod and made his way toward the exit. As he stepped outside, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Aaron," he said when his district manager picked up. "I want to meet tomorrow. We need to talk." The next afternoon, Elijah sat across from Aaron in a quiet cafe near the store. Aaron, a man in his mid-40s with neatly combed hair and an expensive watch, leaned back in his chair, looking unconcerned. "I don't understand the urgency," Aaron said, stirring his coffee. "Brandon runs one of our best-performing locations." Elijah folded his arms. "I went in yesterday as a customer." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "And?" "I watched Brandon humiliate an elderly couple and make assumptions about customers based on appearance. He told his staff to keep an eye on me because I looked like a thief." Aaron let out a short laugh. "Come on, Elijah. You know how it is in luxury retail. We have to maintain an image. Some people just don't belong in a boutique like ours." Elijah's jaw tightened. "Do you hear yourself?" Aaron shrugged. "Our clientele expects exclusivity. Brandon just ensures that the right type of customer gets the experience they deserve." Elijah leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "The right type of customer is anyone who respects our brand and is willing to shop there, not just people who look wealthy." Aaron sighed, clearly impatient. "Look, if we start letting just anyone linger in our stores, it'll change the atmosphere. You built this company on prestige. That's why people shop with us." Elijah shook his head. "No, I built this company on quality and service, and I won't let it turn into some elitist club." Aaron set his coffee down with a small thud. "You're overreacting. Brandon gets results. His store has the highest sales in the region." Elijah's expression didn't change. "At what cost?" Aaron exhaled sharply and checked his watch. "Fine, if you want me to talk to him, I will. But I don't think he's done anything wrong." Elijah stood. "I'll handle it myself." Leaving Aaron at the cafe, he headed straight for the store. When he walked in, Brandon was at the counter speaking with Vanessa. The moment he saw Elijah, his expression darkened. "Sir, if you're not making a purchase, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Brandon said, his tone clipped. Elijah took a step closer. "Actually, I'd like to speak to the manager." Brandon crossed his arms. "You're speaking to him." Elijah held his gaze for a moment, then pulled out his wallet. He retrieved a sleek black business card and set it on the counter. Brandon frowned and picked it up. His eyes scanned the name. Then his face paled. "Elijah Warner." His voice was barely above a whisper. Vanessa, standing beside him, looked equally stunned. The store was silent. Jasmine, who had been arranging a display, stopped and turned toward them. Elijah folded his arms. "I own this company." Brandon swallowed hard. I didn't realize." Elijah didn't let him finish. "I came in yesterday. I watched you turn away a customer because they didn't fit your idea of who should shop here. I heard you make assumptions about people based on nothing but their clothes." Brandon opened his mouth, but Elijah kept going. "This store doesn't belong to you. You don't get to decide who is or isn't worthy of shopping here." Vanessa shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, Elijah turned to her. "You let it happen. You didn't stop him." She looked down. Brandon straightened his shoulders. "With all due respect, Mr. Warner, I was protecting the store's reputation." Elijah's voice was calm but firm. "You were protecting your own prejudices." Brandon's confidence wavered. "I was just following the standards of luxury retail." Elijah's eyes didn't leave his. "Then you don't belong in this company." Brandon's face turned red. "Are you firing me?" Elijah didn't hesitate. "Effective immediately." Vanessa gasped softly. Brandon's mouth opened, then closed. He looked around as if expecting someone to defend him. No one did. Elijah turned to Jasmine. "I saw you yesterday. You knew it was wrong." Jasmine hesitated, then nodded. "I did." Elijah studied her. "Why didn't you speak up?" She bit her lip. "I was afraid. I've seen people get punished for questioning how things are done here." Elijah nodded slowly. "That's going to change." He turned back to the rest of the staff. "This store isn't about making people feel small. It's about giving every customer the same experience no matter what they look like. If that's not something you can stand behind, you're free to leave." No one moved. Elijah exhaled. "Effective immediately, there will be new training on customer service and inclusivity, and there will be changes in leadership." Brandon, still standing there, shook his head in disbelief. "You're making a mistake." Elijah met his gaze. "No. I'm fixing one." Brandon grabbed his things and stormed out. Elijah turned back to the staff. "Anyone else have a problem with the way things are changing?" Silence. Jasmine straightened her shoulders. "I don't." Elijah gave her a small nod. "Then let's make this place what it was meant to be." The tension in the store lingered even after Brandon left. Employees exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of what to expect next. Elijah let the silence settle for a moment, giving them time to absorb what had just happened. Then he turned toward Vanessa. "You've been here a while," he said, his tone measured. "Tell me, how long has this attitude been part of the store culture?" Vanessa hesitated, glancing at Jasmine before answering. Brandon set the tone. He made it clear who he thought deserved service and who didn't. A lot of us just went along with it. Elijah studied her carefully. "And you never thought to challenge it?" Her grip tightened on the edge of the counter. "I didn't think it would make a difference. He was the manager. If I spoke up, I'd just be making my life harder." Jasmine, standing nearby, crossed her arms. "It wasn't just him, though. It was the way Aaron backed him up. Anytime anyone questioned how things were done, they were told to stop complaining or risk losing hours." Elijah absorbed that. He had suspected Aaron's complacency, but hearing it confirmed made his frustration settle deeper. "That changes now," he said. "Anyone who wants to work here needs to understand that we don't judge customers before they even have a chance to shop. We treat everyone with the same level of professionalism and respect." Vanessa nodded, but her expression was still uncertain. "I understand, but some of the customers who come here expect exclusivity. What if they don't like the changes?" Elijah's voice remained steady. "Then they were never the right customers for us to begin with." For the first time, Vanessa looked slightly relieved. Jasmine, on the other hand, seemed more determined. "Does this mean Aaron is next?" she asked. Elijah didn't answer immediately. He had already made up his mind, but he wasn't going to make a rash decision based purely on this conversation. He needed to take care of the immediate issues first. "We'll handle one thing at a time," he finally said. "For now, I want everyone to know that the way this store has been run is over. If you're here to work, to provide excellent service and to treat every customer fairly, you have nothing to worry about. But if you're here to judge and exclude, this isn't the place for you." A few employees nodded. Others looked uncomfortable. Elijah could tell that not everyone agreed, but that was fine. He wasn't running a democracy, he was fixing a broken system. He turned his attention back to Jasmine. "You spoke up when no one else did. That tells me you care about more than just keeping your job. How do you feel about stepping into a leadership role?" Her eyes widened slightly. "Me. You," he confirmed. "I'm not saying it has to be management right away, but I need people I can trust to set the right example. I need to know there are employees here who will make sure this store stays on track." Jasmine hesitated, then slowly nodded. "I'd like that." Elijah nodded in return, making a mental note to follow up with HR about her position. As he finished addressing the employees, the door opened, and a well-dressed woman stepped inside, glancing around the store with an air of expectation. One of the newer employees hesitated before approaching her, clearly nervous after everything that had just happened. Elijah stepped back, watching. "Welcome," the employee said carefully. "Can I help you find anything today?" The woman gave a small nod. "I'm looking for a specific handbag. I saw it online." Without hesitation, the employee guided her toward the display, explaining the details of the product. The interaction was smooth, professional. That was how it should be. Elijah exhaled quietly. There was still work to do, but this was a start. Now it was time to deal with Aaron. Elijah stepped into the corporate office the next morning, his mind already set on what needed to happen next. His meeting with Aaron was scheduled in 15 minutes, but he arrived early, wanting to walk through the space with fresh eyes. Employees moved between desks, engaged in quiet conversations, typing away on laptops. The environment was sleek, professional, but there was a stiffness to it. He wondered how much of that culture came from Aaron's leadership. He reached the conference room and stood near the window, staring out at the city skyline. The door opened behind him. Aaron walked in, adjusting the cuff of his expensive suit. His expression was neutral, but there was a guardedness in his eyes. He took a seat across from Elijah, leaning back slightly. "You wanted to see me." Aaron's tone was light, but there was an undercurrent of tension. Elijah turned, resting his hands on the table. "I went to the store again yesterday." Aaron nodded, waiting. "I fired Brandon." Aaron blinked, then let out a slow breath. "I wasn't expecting that." Elijah studied him. "Why not?" Aaron hesitated for a fraction of a second before responding. "Because he ran the highest performing location. At the expense of everything this company stands for," Elijah stated. Aaron exhaled sharply. "Elijah, listen, luxury retail isn't like other businesses. It's built on image exclusivity. You can't just let anyone walk in and change the culture overnight." Elijah's jaw tightened. "That's exactly the problem. The culture isn't supposed to be about exclusion. It's supposed to be about service, about quality without treating people like they don't belong." Aaron shook his head. "You're looking at this emotionally. You're upset about what happened to that couple, I get it, but Brandon knew how to keep a certain clientele happy. That's why his store performed." Elijah's voice remained steady. "If success comes at the cost of respect, then it's not success. It's failure disguised as profit." Aaron's expression hardened. "So, what's the plan? You're going to restructure the entire company over one incident." Elijah didn't hesitate. "Over a pattern of behavior that you allowed to continue." Aaron's mouth pressed into a thin line. Elijah leaned forward. "This isn't just about Brandon. I spoke to the employees. They told me how complaints were ignored, how they were pressured into staying silent because you backed him. That doesn't happen unless leadership enables it." Aaron's fingers tapped against the table once before he clasped his hands together. "You're saying I should be held responsible for how one manager handled things?" Elijah met his gaze. "I'm saying you shaped the environment that let it thrive." Aaron let out a dry laugh. "So what now? You firing me too?" Elijah didn't answer right away. He let the silence stretch between them, watching as Aaron shifted slightly in his chair. Aaron exhaled through his nose. "You do that, you're tearing out the foundation of this company's retail management. You think you'll find someone better overnight." Elijah's voice was calm. "I'd rather rebuild from the ground up than let a broken system stay in place." Aaron's jaw tightened. "You really think you can run this company without people like me? People who understand the business side of things?" Elijah's expression didn't change. "I don't need people who only understand business. I need people who understand people." Aaron's gaze flickered, frustration flashing across his face before he masked it. "You're making a mistake." Elijah stood. "No, I'm fixing one." He pulled out a folder from his bag, sliding it across the table. "Your severance package. Effective today." Aaron stared at it for a long moment before picking it up. "You're serious?" Elijah didn't answer. Aaron let out a bitter chuckle, shaking his head. "Well, good luck, Elijah. Let's see how long your idealism lasts in this industry." Without another word, he stood, grabbed his things, and walked out. Elijah remained in the conference room for a few minutes, letting the moment settle. He had removed two people who had been poisoning the company's culture, but this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of rebuilding. He pulled out his phone and sent a message to his HR director. "We need to start evaluating leadership across all locations." I want a full report on store culture, employee morale, and customer feedback. This company is changing. As he put his phone away, he felt something he hadn't in a while: clarity. He wasn't just running a business. He was shaping what it stood for. Elijah didn't waste time after Aaron left. He had always believed that leadership shaped culture, and now he had an opportunity to prove it. A report from HR was already in motion, but he needed more than just numbers. He needed to hear from the employees themselves, the ones who lived this reality every day. By the time he arrived back at the Manhattan store, it was late afternoon. The usual quiet hum of conversation filled the space, but there was an undeniable shift in the air. Employees were more alert, cautious, as if unsure of what would come next. He had appended everything they had known in the past 24 hours, and now they were waiting to see what that meant for them. Jasmine was organizing a display near the entrance when she noticed him. She straightened slightly, her expression unreadable. He approached, lowering his voice so their conversation stayed between them. "I want to hear from the staff," he said, "not just about Brandon, but about what it's really like to work here." She hesitated before answering. "Some won't talk, at least not right away. They're afraid of losing their jobs. That's why I need you to help me set up a meeting." She glanced over at the other employees, then back at him. "If they see it's not just talk, that you're actually making changes, they might open up. That's the plan." Jasmine nodded and stepped away, quietly spreading the word. Within 20 minutes, the employees began gathering in the back of the store near the stockroom. Some leaned against shelves, others stood with arms crossed, skepticism clear on their faces. Elijah faced them, hands in his pockets. He wasn't here to give a speech, he was here to listen. "I know what happened yesterday was a shock," he said. "And I know a lot of you probably wonder what's going to happen next." A man near the middle of the group, a sales associate with sharp features and a tense stance, spoke up. "Brandon was awful, but he got us results. You think changing everything overnight is going to help?" Elijah met his gaze. "You tell me, was the way things were helping you?" The man hesitated. Another employee, a woman with auburn hair, crossed her arms. "We didn't have a choice. If we didn't follow the way things were done, we'd get written up or lose hours." Jasmine spoke up from the side. "That's not how a company should work. We shouldn't have to choose between keeping our jobs and doing the right thing." A few employees nodded, but others still looked uncertain. Elijah took a step forward. "I'm not asking for blind trust, I'm asking for honesty. What do you need to do your jobs better? What's been holding you back?" At first, there was silence. Then, slowly, voices started to rise. Employees talked about unrealistic sales goals, about feeling pressured to profile customers, about the lack of support when they faced difficult situations. One younger associate, barely out of college, shifted nervously before speaking. "I used to love helping people find the right piece, the perfect bag or shoes, but it stopped feeling like that. It became more about making sure we only catered to certain types of people." Elijah absorbed every word. This wasn't just about one store, it was systemic. When the conversation finally quieted, he spoke again. "Things are going to change, not just here but across the company. That means new hiring policies, new training, and better support for employees, but I need people who are willing to help make that happen." Jasmine didn't hesitate. "I'm in." The associate who had spoken earlier glanced at her, then nodded. "Me too." One by one, others followed. Not everyone, but enough. Elijah knew this was only the beginning, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like his company was heading in the right direction.